Hi everyone, welcome back to this continuation of our Asian flowers and foliage. Just a recap, in obviously the first lesson we did the camellia, first part of the camellia. Then in the second part we finished off the camellia, then we went on to the bamboo in the third part and fourth part, and obviously finished off our bamboo and our container ready for our arrangement. So this is now the fifth part, and in this particular episode we're going to be using the Japanese maple and ivy mold, and we're actually going to be making some ginkgo leaves and Japanese maple leaves, but we're going to do them in more the colors you would have in the sort of spring and summer, which is more of a sort of a limey green color. So it just shows you like how you can use that same mold, not just in the autumn or fall. So let's get started. So here is our, obviously my Flower Pro. This is the maple, the Japanese maple, the ginkgo, and of course ivy, two varieties of ivy. So this mold we've used obviously in other projects as well, like obviously in the autumn fall arrangement we did the large maple leaf. So we're going to be making the ginkgo leaves. So here you can see the ginkgo, and in the autumn fall time normally you do these in a cream color, and then we of course build in these beautiful colors. And also Japanese maple, of course, you're going to make these in these beautiful like terracotta red burgundy colors. But of course, so you can see here obviously in the book 3, you know, this shows you obviously the coloring of the more traditional autumn time. But when we are using when we're making, like for example, we're going to start off with the ginkgo. This shows the ginkgo leaf, and you can see, of course, which is also commonly known as the maidenhair fern tree, because the maidenhair ferns or maidenhair tree, you know, that maidenhair ferns have this same sort of shape. It's a little bit actually like a single shamrock leaf as well. And of course, in the spring, and when the leaves come back on the trees in the spring and summer, they're going to be this sort of greeny color. There's also some varieties you can see here, which are almost like a yellow and green stripe. And of course, in the autumn time, they turn into this yellowy color, and then of course the lovely oranges and things on top. So we're going to start off with the ginkgo leaves. Now, in your production list for what we need as far as production lists, and also for your equipment and things, tools you need, obviously this is the mold we're going to use. And this mold comes with obviously the maple leaf veiner, but when we make the ginkgo, which we're going to start off with, we're going to use the fan veiner. Now this fan veiner comes with the sunflower and daisy mold. So this comes as part of the sunflower and daisy mold, which a lot of you probably have this already, but also this is sold separately as well, because remember, if you watch my, for example, poppy, I use this for the poppy veining also. So we're going to use this for the back. Now, if you don't have this, what you can actually do, like some of the other Flower Pro Members Club projects, you can actually pressure paste in there, and then you can turn it over and press it in the other side. But if you have the fan veiner, this is obviously the easiest way to do the back veining. Now, in your paste requirements for sugar, it has two options. You're going to use, this is going to be made into a limey green color. All right, so we want almost like a lime skin green. And so you use a number 12 white of your flour paste, your gum paste, and color it with lime green. So you could use like a lime green gel and electric green. If you don't have, you can also use, if you don't have a lime green, you can use a little bit of green, moss green, and yellow, just to achieve this sort of like lime, almost like I said, like a lime skin color. Or you can also use a number 10 white and the number 10 moss green, which is what I've done. So I've just used pre-colored green and white, number 10 of each, and then I've just added a little bit of yellow gel to it, just to give you that limey color, okay? And with air drying clay, it says in your instructions, you need number 10 white, number 8 yellow, and the number 8 green, and you combine those together, and that will make a lime green air drying clay. All right, so anyway, you're using a number 12, and a number 12, this is the number 12 size. That's going to be enough for the 3 ginkgo leaves and for the 9 Japanese maple we're going to be making as well, because this is what we're now going to make. All right, so you see how we've got the 3 ginkgo leaves, and then we're making 3 of each size of Japanese maple. Now, Japanese maple we're also going to do in the green color, because again, if you have an Acer Japanese maple tree in your garden, you know, during the spring and summertime and early part of the fall, they're going to just be green leaves, okay? And so they're obviously changed color. And and of course, there are some varieties that obviously have that sort of darker color, but there are varieties that have this sort of more limey color. Now, so that's anyway, so what we're going to do paste-wise. And we're going to be making in your production list, so we're going to make 3 ginkgo leaves to start off with. And then once we've made the ginkgo leaves, we're going to be moving on to Japanese maple. Now, so just like we've done before, we're going to take a little tiny bit of vegetable shortening, vegetable fat, and just put a little of that on the back of your hand, and you're going to just put that into the ginkgo mold here. Just a little tiny bit, all right? So it's going to give you the shape of the mold. It has this sort of really beautiful fan shape. And I'm going to take a number 8 ball of lime green color. So with the lime green, so of course you'd measure off 3 of these. I'm just going to show you 1 because I've already got mine made, but make another 2. These are number 8 regular size. Of course, just keep those underneath a little pot. So you just will keep your 3 little balls of paste underneath your pot, and you'll be ready to move on. So what we're going to do is going to take your number 8 paste. I'm just going to condition this. So I'm just going to work just a little bit of vegetable shortening into the paste and roll into a sausage the width of the leaf. All right. So what we're actually going to do here is going to roll this into a sausage. So this sausage is going to be made sort of the width of the leaf, almost like the widest point of the leaf. So once you've conditioned your paste, it's just that with, you know, like obviously the Asian foliage, we're thinking of leaves and obviously that are popular in Japan, in Asia, in China. For example, in Japan, where I spend many times, you know, many months of the year sometimes. Obviously the ginkgo is a very popular, very symbolic shaped leaf in Japanese art. It's used a lot in kimono designs, in shoji screens, and all sorts of things. So it's a very nice shape. So you just make that the width of the widest part of the mold. And then all you're going to do then, you're just going to fold it into like a V shape. All right, and we're going to pop that into the mold. Just going to press it in just gently with my fingers. And I'm just going to put just a little tiny bit of corn flour on the top of this. And then you're going to take your fan veiner. Now, if you don't have the fan veiner, as I said, you can just use like the back of this leaf veiner. All we're going to do, as we do on some of the other Flower Pro products, we're just using this as a way of pressing the paste into the mold. Okay, so you see how that's going to sort of start to work into the mold. And then using your cosmetic sponge, just going to work the paste into the mold here like this. Just going to work that to the edges of the leaf. All right, so it's going to fill in the mold there like so. Okay, and then once you press that in, so it wants to be, as I said, sort of thinner in this area here. It'll be a little bit thicker in the middle, and then you're just going to create your ridge. Just make sure you stay within the mold. And then you need, going to use wires, 26 gauge white wire. I'm using white wire just because, you know, some of you might make your green a little lighter. So obviously the green would come through, green wire would shadow through it. So we're using white wires. These are 26 gauge white wires. Going to pop this into our egg white. And then this is going to go in here. So we're going to go in about 2/3 of the way up the ridge. So what that means is that we're going to go pretty close to the sort of where that indentation is. All right, so you're going to just put your wire in, going to go in about 2/3 of the way up there, like so. Okay. And then once you've done that, we're going to take the back veiner. So this is our fan veiner. So again, just line this up. This doesn't have the notch on that some of the, like for example, like this one does here. So all you're going to do is the point of this, you're just going to line this up with the point of where the wire is. Just going to press on the top of this. All right, it's going to get your nice veining onto your petals here. I'm going to take this out. Just if you have a little bit of obviously sometimes you might have a little tiny bit of over fill, so you can just trim that with your scissors here. Okay, and then once we've done that, just that inside part as well, you can just use your companion tool to go into there if needed. And then we're going to, in your directions, it then says you're going to remove from the mold and then cut small slices using needle tool of companion tool or spring action scissors. So you can either use your needle tool here, all right, and with the needle tool, we're actually going to sort of cut like little slashes into this. So you're going to, with your needle tool here, there you go. So you're just going to cut like little cut, and then you can do like another little cut there, and remove that. So you see how you're making like these little slashes in the leaf, all right? So you can do that like on a hard surface. You can just make like little cuts with your needle tool, just remove that little bit there. Or you can also do that with your, like if you have some fine scissors, these are like the spring action scissors. It's going to make a little cut, just a really, really tiny, like little tiny slice of paste here. And as I said, you can also do a combination of both of these. You can just make some little, and you can also, when you use the companion tool, you can just make some like little tiny, almost like cuts, but then you can also do, as I said, some where you use your scissors where you can remove like a little tiny slice there like that. So you see how this is just going to make that sort of shaggy edge which we have. And then on the back side of the leaf, so on the back of the leaf, I'm going to use my companion tool, and I'm just going to just work this, remember, right on the edge. Usually this is easier to do with your, by holding the pad up. And you see then your angle, see how the angle of my stick is going to roll that quite firmly. Not too much on the, like up here and in the center part, because you want to sort of keep that nice shape. But as I said, just going to work that to the edge here, like so. And of course, with air drying clay, this would be the way you would have to do it, because we really don't want the softening so much there. But see how I'm just going to do that just a little bit sort of here and here, but you're almost leaving this part and this part intact. And then all we're going to do is going to turn this over, and then with your companion tool, we're just going to just hollow the base of the leaf here, just like you would ivy and things like that. And you're just going to just pop that to dry into your tray, into your convoluted or I said crepe foam. Okay, and so we're going to be making 3 of those. So those will be our 3 ginkgo leaves. So this is in your production list. So you'd start off with the 3 ginkgo leaves. Now, in this lesson, we're going to be making, as I said, ginkgo, Japanese maple, and also the plum blossoms. But as I said, so it doesn't really matter in which order you do things in. It's going to depend on your time management as well. You know, what if you're able to do the whole thing through, or obviously in pieces. So that would be the ginkgo. So obviously, you know, you've got your 3 leaves, you'd have that. And next, we're going to move on to the Japanese maple. So now we're going to make the Japanese maple. We're going to make this in exactly the same color. The colors will look different because the greens and colors we're going to put on them will make the leaves look a little different, but these are both going to add a nice vibrancy to our Asian flower and foliage container. Now, when we do the Japanese maple, we're going to be making 3 of each, and in your instructions it says number 4 small for the small leaves, number 5 for medium, and 6 plus for large. So what that means is sort of large number 6. So this is going to be obviously number 4 small. All right, so it wants to just go through your number 4 hole. Okay, and then you have number 5 regular size. So that's obviously the 1/3 below, 2/3 above our normal sizing. And then the 6 wants to be like a large number 6, which we've talked about on occasions where we have about 1/4 below and 3/4 above. Because you can see that, like, if it's obviously going to be way smaller than the 7 small. So there are some times where we do use a large size. Remember, most of the time it would be a small size or obviously just a regular size. So that will give you your leaves. Now again, we're going to take the little bit of the shortening here, vegetable fat. So here, these are our cavities for the Japanese maple. And there are some varieties of ivy that you can make with this mold as well. But what I'm trying to do is just show you that this is not just a mold for autumn time as far as the maple, the ginkgo, and remember also that this makes a fabulous grape leaf. So when you're making grapes, this is a really nice one to use for your grape leaves as well. And when we do this, we're going to just take the ball of paste. And all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to sort of place that on the top. Just going to press that in with my, again, you can use the mold, you can use the back veiner if you want to, but usually on this one, I just start working that in with my cosmetic sponge. Okay, and then we'll finish up with our, using our Dresden tool. So with our Dresden veining tool, you can just sort of press that to the top of the cavity. Okay, remember, just stay within the mold. You can even use, especially on the little tiny one, the veining tool end, that's really small. You see, and you can actually also stretch. So you see how you can actually just use your Dresden tool here and just stretch that into the mold. And you can see here on the bottom there, it's got like, this is the stem where obviously the wire will go in. And then you have these two little, just slightly, like little tiny leaves there. But just use your Dresden tool or your veining tool. So you see how you almost like with this tool here, just gonna pull that up so you get that nice V shape, okay? So don't feel where the wire will go. Now, of course, when you are doing a larger leaf like this, we're going to now create the ridge. So you can use your fingers for that. See how we're just going to get that little ridge down the middle there. When you do, especially on the small ones there, you can also use your, your companion tool. All right, so you can just use your companion tool each side of this to create that little ridge. All right, so that little ridge will go down through the middle there like so. Okay, 28 gauge white wire. So in your requirements list, you've got 9 28 gauge white wires. Okay, so again, we're going to take some. And of course, when you're doing the autumn colored leaf, you can do, of course, green wires or white wires. Just going to push your wire into there. All right, so it's going to go into the wire there. So we're going to then, so put that about 2/3 of the way in. So I've gone in about 2/3 of the way into the leaf here. Because remember, when you ever have a leaf that's sort of this shape, like the ivy, when we take most of the things out of Flower Pro molds, we pinch the base of the leaf or the base of the petal, whereas you can't do that here. So you always compensate when you're doing a leaf that has this sort of shaped base. You always put the wire in a little bit further than you would to compensate the fact you can't mold around the base. Now, we're going to take the back veiner. So this is, of course, like the maple veiner. Like, of course, when you're doing the maple leaf, you line it up right here like this. Because this is a smaller leaf, what I'm going to do is I still want the wire in the little window, but I'm just going to come down a little bit off the edge of the mold there. Just going to press this on here like that. All right, so you're going to get that sort of the veining on the back. Just remember, as I said, just carefully peel this back. Again, if you have any like overfill, when you're doing some of these smaller projects, you might sort of overfill a little bit. Just go in with your little tool here. All right, so that's going to be the front of the leaf. Now on the back of the leaf, what we're going to do is going to then remove from the mold, work the back edge using the needle tool on the small and veining tool on the medium and large on the green side of the pad. So when you do the little tiny baby one, obviously this is very tiny. All right, what we're going to do is going to go around the edge. This is very much like we did on the camellia in the first lesson when we made the camellia leaves. So you go around the edge with the needle tool end. So you're going to get this little slight serration on the edge. And on the medium and large, we're going to use the veining tool end. So remember, this is the veining tool. This is called the Dresden tool, this wider, flatter part. And this is the veining tool. So what we do here is you're going to use your tool here and just going to go around the edge. All right, like this. So you're just going to use your veining tool part. So just going to go around the edge like this to give you these little tiny serrations. This is done on the back of the leaf. Because then just like on the camellia, you will have these like almost like little serrations then on the front. We're just going to do that on the, and sometimes we do this on the soft side of the pad for certain leaves, but here we want that nice defined serration. And don't do that on the little tiny ones, all right? And all you then do is turn this over, and again, you're just going to just hollow this around the base of the, just pinch that a little bit like a taco shape. So it's going to be very much like you would for an ivy leaf. And again, that would just go into the, and I already have my 9 ready, okay, for actually the second part. So you do 3 small, 3 medium, and 3 large. So that is going to be our, those will be our, as I said, Japanese maple is a green maple leaf. But this could be like an ivy. It's a very useful, little very dainty leaf to go with all different types of foliage. So now in your, obviously, order list, it says you need to now watch the videos number 1, 2, and 3. Now, this is the brand new mold. This is my new Flower Pro Blossoms mold. And this Flower Pro Blossoms mold, this has got obviously different cavities. So you've got like the different cavities for the buds and for the flowers and the calyxes and the leaves, all right? Now, there are 3 videos, all right? The first video, which you'll need to watch the videos, especially video number 1, because on video number 1, that shows how to make the stamen centers for the flowers. All right, and those can be made for the cherry and include in the plum, which we're going to make for this project. They can be made with these fine silk veining stamens. All right, and so these come in white. They come in like a very pale, almost like an ivory. It's an off-white color and a very pale yellow. And you can also can get them in darker yellow. We have the white, the ivory, and the very pale yellow. But what we do is actually, for making the plum, you'll need to use the white or the ivory, very pale cream ones. So that is one option. All right, and then the second option, which I showed during the first video for making the cherry, is you can also make these from thread. So very much like the way we made the camellia center, but of course not as big. We're going to make these out of thread. And on the first video for the cherry blossoms, the single cherry blossom, I show how to make these stamens, how to make thread centers, and then also how to even make from fishing filament. So those of you that are working with air drying clay, you can actually make these from fine fishing filament, which is all in your directions. All right, and we've given you the full directions in your handout. All right, so there's the direction for the plum, and then there's also the directions for the single cherry, the double flowering cherry, the apple blossom, and also the peach blossom. Okay, so on the first video I show how to do make the stamens. You'll need to watch that because in your instructions it cross-references the first, as I said, first video of making the cherry blossoms centers, the stamens. All right, so you can either, if you've got fine stamens, or if not, if you just use thread. Okay, and I show how to dust these. And you see that makes the centers of the flowers. And so the first video shows how to make the single flowering cherry. So this is the single flowering cherry here. And this is the Yoshino cherry, which is the Japanese cherry. So in cities like here in Macon, Georgia, which is a little south of Atlanta, or Washington, D.C., a lot of those cities have cherry blossom festivals. And but a lot of those, especially the ones in Washington, D.C., were a gift from the Japanese government to the United States. And so that's the Yoshino cherry. But as I talk about in the videos, there's many different shaped cherries. And of course, the color can be white or different shades of pink. And so when I actually show that on the video, you'll see how I use this more rounded bud. So there's 3 buds here. This is also what you'll see on the video I use for Mexican hats. So when we make the actual flowers, we make a little, like almost a hat shape, where we actually take a ball of paste and press it onto the small bud mold. So when you turn it over, you're going to get this like little nipple, which is going to be the sort of little hat part at the back of the flower. So you see how you'll actually create the back of the flower shape like this. So on that first video, you'll see me make the buds, the stamens, then I'll make the flower. For the Japanese cherry, we'll be using this particular cavity, which is almost a heart-shaped one. And then we'll be making the buds, all right? And then we'll be using this for the calyx, for the small buds, and for the flowers, we'll be using the larger calyx. And then we'll be using the leaves that are to the right and left of the mold. These are the ones with more of a serration on them. Okay, and so you'll watch that on the first video, and then that will all make sense from your instructions. And then the second video shows how to make double flowering cherry. All right, so it actually shows how to make the double flowering cherry, which is the prunus. And this is a double variety of cherry. And then we also, on that video, I show how to put the flowers, make the flowers into a spray. So I actually show how to make a natural branch of cherry, how to make moss on the branch, and then also, of course, how we do this nice natural end on the cherry. And then the cake that's behind me with the spray of cherry on it, that's got a long spray of flowering cherry. I show how to use that. Now then the third video, okay, so you've got several videos to watch. The third video is going to show how to make apple blossom. So this is apple blossom, which is white with a very pale pink edge. But again, almond blossoms, pear blossoms, sometimes are white, sometimes they're pink, sometimes they're white with pink on them. And I show how to create that. And then for that particular one, I'm using the apple blossom there. I'm going to be using this cavity here, all right? And that is actually going to be the same cavity we're going to use for your plum. And so this is what we're going to make the flower with. And then the leaves of the leaves are done with the same molds we use for the cherry, which is going to be here and here, all right? And then, of course, you've got the calyx on there also. So this is a great mold because it has all the components you need on it. It also has the back veiner, all right? So this back veiner here, this is what we're going to use to put over the little Mexican hat. So the little hat will come up from the top. And so then when you have your flower in there, you press this on the top. And then this is, of course, the back leaf veiner. So when you do your leaves, you'll just actually just line that up like this. And in the video I talk about, you know, you could, if you wanted to, cut this in two, but I would suggest keep this together, because obviously if you start separating molds, but this works really, really well, as I said, for obviously doing the veining, and also for the back, obviously the leaves as well. And so I show how to do the apple blossom. That's the start of the third video. The reason why I want to mention this is because I've cross-referenced in your instructions, I cross-reference as apple blossom or as cherry blossom center, okay? And so obviously this is the apple blossom, which is really beautiful, lovely for like a baby shower cake, christening cake as well. And then I show how to make both the plum and also the peach blossoms. Now, again, you know, Georgia is the peach state, so we grow a lot of peach trees. So in a couple of weeks, you know, obviously in usually the early spring, you know, so early March, we have the cherry are on the trees, you know, so obviously our cherry blossoms here in, for example, Georgia is usually in March. In Japan, peak cherry blossom season is usually around about the 9th of April. And in Washington, D.C., because of its geographical location, it's a little, obviously doesn't get as warm so quickly. So again, it's usually in April. But obviously peaches, peach blossom, the peach blossom is actually made in the one here that's a little bit more pointed. All right, so it's going to be the one that's a little bit more pointed. And then the plum, the ume, so plum is a very, it's like an late winter blossom. All right, so really, as I say, we've got plum blossoms. Obviously, we have plum blossoms in January here in Atlanta. And so this is obviously very pretty. And the basic difference between these two, you'll see how the plum has this little center, like almost like a little bagel donut, ring donut shape in the middle of it. And it's a little bit stronger pink, but the peach and the plum are both really made in the same way, just different shaped cavities, and coloring is a little bit different as well. All right, so again, on the third video, I show the apple blossom, and then I show how to make the peach and the plum blossom. Now we're going to make the plum blossom for our spray. All right, so you're going to watch this on the video. So your instructions have all of the written down instructions, your download, and then of course you're just going to watch the video. But in our production list, we're going to make the plum stamens. You're going to make 3 stamens, 1, 2, 3. And again, in that I show either using the stamens, the fine stamens, or using the thread, the sewing thread. And then we're going to make the plum blossoms. So then you'll make the 3 plum blossoms. You'll then make the plum buds. We'll do 2 of each size. And those are going to be made along with the apple and the peach in these are the like taller ones. So these actually make a more elongated bud. If you look at the shape of you can see the cherry blossom buds are a little bit more rounded, whereas the apple and the plum and the peach are more elongated, okay? And so you'll be able to watch how to make those. And so that will be, and then once you've got those, once they're dry, you're going to add the calyx on the plum buds and blossoms, and that will be what we would need for the first, as I said, lesson, okay? And so on this first lesson, so you'll have obviously the components here. This is a finished one, and in the next lesson, I'm going to, in lesson 6, I'm going to talk about the coloring on here, all right? But so you'll have just the components made, obviously undusted and unassembled, but the calyx is on. You'll have your 9. You'll have your 9, obviously Japanese maple leaves, and then you'll have your 3 ginkgo leaves. All right, so these will be what we will have. But remember, your blossom is going to just look like this. All right, so your plum blossoms and your buds, they'll just be made a slightly stronger pink. All right, and they will have the calyx. They will have the calyx already on them, but they will be undusted and unassembled. And so that would be what we're going to do for this lesson. And in your paste, all right, so in your paste part for the plum blossoms here, you're going to be using, so you can either use, like I used here, actually some sugar in paste. So I used the sugar in. So in your instructions there, it says we need a number 12 white and a number 6 fuchsia pink combined together. Or you can take a number 12 white and then you just add some pink color. And in your air drying clay, for your air drying clay, I used a number, this is a number 12 white, and the number 3 magenta. So if you have the magenta, the pink colored air drying clay, and you have white air drying clay, I just used obviously a number 12 white and number 3 magenta. But you can see it's sort of like a mid pink, all right? Whereas when you see the cherry, I will make a lot lighter because you want this sort of fairly bright pink so that of course when you put the stronger pink on top of that, it's going to look beautiful. And then we just need a little bit of green, moss green. I've got a number 8, but that would be left. You can just use the green you have left from this, will be totally fine. Or if you have moss green, just use that, all right? But this lighter, brighter green will also work fine for your plum as well. Now, a couple of other things, just talking about things you're going to see on the video. You will see me talk about a cosmetic wedge. Now, because when you're doing the cherry petals, all right, when I use the cherry petals, you'll see how I use the thin part of a cosmetic wedge to just, because you want the petals to be nice and thin there, okay? So you'll see me use a cosmetic wedge. If you don't have that, of course, the sponge we use regularly is going to be fine, but I said you will see me use the wedge. And then another thing you will see me use is this cosmetic sponge which has a cross in it, all right? So what you do there is you just would take a cosmetic sponge and you just would cut here and cut here. Because like we sell a 3-piece, our 3-piece sponge set that we sell, that has actually got three sponges on it. It has a round one, it has one with a hole in it, and then it has one with the cross in it like this, you see? All right, and what this means is when you have your flower, when you actually have like the little Mexican hat-shaped flower in the mold, you actually push this over the top of it and you'll press around with your, you'll see this on the video 1 to start off with, all right? So those are really just a couple of little additional, obviously, equipment that we'll be using. So cosmetic wedge and a cosmetic sponge with a square into it, all right, or a cross into it, onto the top of it. And you'll see me use, because what we do is we actually press the paste in, first of all, with the back of the mold, then we'll then finish it off with the cosmetic sponge, and then with the wedge we'll pull it right the way to the ends, all right? And that will be your pieces. So those will be your components for, as I said, this lesson, and then we'll be ready in the next lesson to actually put these together, to color them, and then we're going to go on to finish off the arrangement into the container. So I hope you've enjoyed this 5th part of our Asian flowers and foliage container arrangement. And so until next time, sweet wishes, see you soon, bye.